Alright, this is another example of the chain rule. This time I'm going to try to follow Newton's notation instead and see if that makes it easier for you. This example says to find the derivative of g of t equals negative 7 divided by 2t minus 3 squared. So, what I need to do first before I can use the Newton way is find something I can replace with u. So, we're going to use some substitution rules. So, I'm going to write down here g prime of t equals, and I'm going to get my fraction set up. It says negative 7 over what squared. And this is where, like I said before, it's a lot easier to determine what the inside function is than the outside function. So I'm going to look at this and I'm thinking that 2t minus 3 is my inside function. So I'm going to replace that whole thing with just one letter, which is a u, because that's what Newton notation says. And out to the side, I'm just going to write u equals 2t minus 3. So I remember later on what it stands for. Okay, now I have not done any derivatives yet, so let's go ahead and get to that. So g prime of t equals. Now, what we need to make sure that we understand here is right now I have a quotient rule. And I don't particularly want to do a quotient rule with a chain rule. It's messy, it's confusing, and you have to be really careful. So how else can we write this without using a fraction? Well, I'm looking at this as being negative 7 times u to the negative square. Don't forget about your negative exponents here. Alright, this looks a whole lot nicer. So I'm going to go ahead and continue this, and I'm going to start taking derivatives. Now, the derivative of the outside part. In other words, if u was my actual variable, how would I derive this? So I'm going to take this negative 2, multiply it by negative 7. That's going to give me negative, oops, I wanted to stay in red. Negative, positive 14. Negative times negative is positive. Parenthesis, I'm going to write my u, close parenthesis, reduce my exponent by 1, which is negative 3, not negative 1, because we're reducing, we're subtracting. Okay, so that's that part. Now the rule says to multiply this by whatever u prime is. I want you to look back up here where I originally wrote u, and I'm going to do some scratch work and say u prime equals what? So the derivative of 2t minus 3 is just 2. And I'm going to go down here and I'm going to write 2. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and simplify this if we can. G of t is equal to, well, let's multiply this 14 by this 2, which is 28. I'm going to open up my parenthesis, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and write what my original u was, which is 2t minus 3. I'm going to close off my parenthesis and rewrite my exponent, and that is it. This is my final answer. So if you find this easier to do with some substitution than Leibniz notation, then this is what I want you to use. Alright, this concludes this tutorial.